The great hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with the voices of 1,000 different species. The Galaxy Council was in session, and today they were talking about the humans again. Ambassador Sarah Chun sat in the human section listening to the same complaints she had heard for months. The humans refused to follow proper mining procedures on Kepler 442, said Councillor Vex, his blue skin glowing with anger. The Altarian's voice echoed through the massive chamber. They claim the primitive beings living there have rights. As if creatures who have not even discovered fire deserve protection. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the council. Chambers, Sarah kept her face calm, but inside she felt tired. So very tired of this same argument over and over again. The Zephyrians discovered that world first, continued Vex. According to galactic law, they have mining rights to the entire planet. The humans have no authority to interfere. Sarah looked around the enormous circular chamber. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in floating pods that moved slowly around the central speaking platform. The Krillians with their insect-like bodies clicked their approval. The massive Vorthek delegates rumbled their agreement through translator devices. Even the elegant Seraphim, usually neutral in most matters, nodded their crystalline heads. Furthermore, Vex went on, the humans have established what they call protection zones around 17 different primitive worlds. This violates the Resource Development Treaty that all council members signed 200 years ago. Sarah's communication device buzzed softly. A message from Earth. The President says you have full authority to make any decision you think. Is right, we trust you completely? That message meant more to her than all the angry speeches filling the chamber. Earth trusted her, the Terran Federation trusted her. After serving as their ambassador for 8 years, her people still believed in her judgment. The human representative will now speak, announced the Council's ancient AI system. Sarah's pod moved smoothly toward the center of the chamber. She stood up and activated her translator. Council members, we have protected those worlds because the beings living there are intelligent. They have language, culture, art, and families. The fact that they use stone tools instead of plasma rifles does not make them less deserving of life. Sentiment, hissed Councillor Zarn of the hegemony. Emotional thinking that has no place in galactic governance. Resources must be used efficiently. Primitive species can be relocated to reservation planets where they will be safe and cared for like the Denari were cared for? Sarah asked quietly. Relocated to a desert world where half of them died in the first year? The chamber fell silent for a moment. The Denari relocation was not something the council liked to discuss. That was an unfortunate miscalculation, said Councillor Vex. We have improved our relocation procedures since then. Improved them by doing more relocations, Sarah replied. 12 species moved in the last 50 years. How many of those are still thriving on their new worlds? This is not the point of today's discussion, interrupted High Councillor Thane. The elderly Nexri's voice carried the authority of someone who had led the council for over a century. The point is that humans continue to ignore galactic law. You cannot simply claim primitive worlds as your own territory. We are not claiming them, Sarah said. We are protecting them until they advance enough to speak for themselves. And how long might that take? Asked Councillor Vex. 1,000 years? 10,000? Meanwhile, valuable resources sit unused while the galaxy's population grows and needs increase. Sarah activated her personal datapad and projected statistics to the air above the chamber. The 17 worlds we protect contain enough rare minerals to supply galactic needs for exactly 43 days. The mining operations would destroy ecosystems that took millions of years to develop and eliminate species that can never be replaced. 43 days of rare minerals represents enormous wealth, rumbled a Vorthak delegate. Wealth that could fund medical research, infrastructure development, and colony expansion. The humans already contribute more to medical research than any other species, Sarah pointed out. Our scientists share their discoveries freely with all council members. Our engineers maintain critical systems on hundreds of worlds. Our ships carry emergency supplies to disaster zones across the galaxy. We believe preservation of life is more valuable than short-term resource extraction. Nevertheless, said High Counselor Thane, you signed the same treaties as everyone else. Galactic law applies to all species equally. Sarah looked around the chamber again. Pod after pod filled with beings who saw the universe in terms of profit and efficiency. She thought about the messages she received each week from human scientists working on primitive worlds. They sent pictures of children playing in alien forests, stories about discovering new forms of art scratched into cave walls, reports about complex social structures that revealed intelligence in unexpected forms. The Council will now vote, announced High Counselor Thane. All in favor of imposing immediate economic sanctions on the Terran Federation until they comply with Resource Development Treaty requirements. Sarah watched as pod after pod lit up green for yes. A few stayed dark, abstaining from the vote, but not a single one glowed red for no. Not one species in the entire galaxy supported humanity's position. The vote is final, Thane declared. Sanctions will begin immediately. The Terran Federation has 30 standard days to withdraw from all protected worlds and allow proper resource development to proceed. Sarah stood up slowly. She thought about her daughter back on Earth, studying to become a xenobiologist because she wanted to help alien species survive and thrive. She thought about the human medical teams working in disaster zones, the human engineers fixing broken infrastructure for free, the human explorers who always seemed to be the first ones to respond when someone needed help. High Counselor, she said quietly, I have something to say. The vote is finished, Ambassador Chun. There is nothing more to discuss. This is not about the vote, Sarah replied. She felt strangely calm now that the decision was made. This is an official statement from the Terran Federation. The chamber grew quiet. Even the translator devices seemed to hum more softly. Sarah took a deep breath and spoke clearly so that every species in the chamber could understand her words. The Terran Federation withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. The silence that followed was complete. In 12,000 years of galactic civilization, no species had ever voluntarily left the Council. Members were sometimes expelled for breaking major laws, but nobody had ever just walked away. You cannot simply leave, said High Counselor Thane, his voice shaking slightly. The Council maintains galactic peace and stability. The treaties you signed are binding. We signed those treaties as Council members, Sarah replied. Since we are no longer Council members, the treaties no longer apply to us. She gathered her personal belongings and walked toward the chamber exit. Her footsteps echoed in the enormous space. Ambassador Chun, called Counselor Vex, what about your obligations? Your trade agreements? Your defense commitments? Sarah paused at the chamber entrance and turned back one final time. Those were agreements between the Terran Federation and the Galactic Council. Since we are no longer part of the Council, I suppose you will have to manage without us. She walked out of the chamber and did not look back. Behind her, the greatest political gathering in galactic history sat in stunned silence, trying to understand what had just happened. For the first time in 12,000 years, the galaxy would have to function without every species being part of the same system. What nobody realized yet was just how much they had come to depend on the humans they had just driven away. 2 weeks after Ambassador Chun walked out of the council chambers, Captain Zrix of the Zephyrin merchant vessel Morning Star sent out a distress call. His ship was under attack by pirates near the Outer Rim territories, and he needed help immediately. This is Morning Star requesting emergency assistance. Zrix broadcast on all frequencies. 3 raider ships attacking our convoy. We have civilians on board, including children. Please respond. The distress call reached 17 different ships in the area. 15 of them changed course to avoid the pirate attack. One sent a message saying they would report the incident to authorities. The last ship, a small Altarian patrol vessel, responded that they were too lightly armed to help against 3 raiders. Captain, Zrix watched his scanner as the human patrol ship Defender changed course and moved away from his position. For 30 years, human ships had always been the first to respond to distress calls in this sector. The Defender had saved Zephyrian ships dozens of times before. Now it continued on its original course as if the distress call meant nothing. "Please," Strix broadcast directly to the Defender. "We have worked together before. My cargo hold has medical supplies for the Centauri colonies. If the raiders take them, thousands will die." The response came back in the calm voice of Captain Rodriguez. "Sorry, Captain Strix. The Terran Federation is no longer part of the Galactic Council. Council trade routes are not our responsibility anymore. Good luck, the Morning Star and 2. Other Zephyrian cargo ships were captured by pirates that day. The medical supplies never reached Centauri, and the plague that was spreading there got worse without proper treatment. On the research station Deep Space 7, Dr. Velix stared at his computer screen in confusion. The Altarian scientist had been working on a project to cure the wasting disease that affected elderly Krillians. For months, he had been sharing data with human research teams and making good progress. Now all the human research databases showed the same message. Access denied. Contact your system administrator. Dr. Velix contacted the human research station on Europa. "This is Dr. Velix on Deep Space 7. I cannot access our shared research files. Is there a technical problem?" "No technical problem," came the reply from Dr. Martinez on Europa. "The Terran Federation Research Network is now closed to non-Federation species. All previous collaborative projects are terminated." "But we are so close to finding a cure," Dr. Velix said. "The Krillian elders are dying. We need just a few more weeks of shared research." "I am sorry, Dr. Velix. The Council made it clear that human cooperation was not valued. We are focusing our research efforts on Federation worlds now." Dr. Velix tried to continue his research alone, but without the human data, progress stopped completely. The cure that had been only weeks away became impossible to achieve. On the orbital station Epsilon, the situation got much worse. The Krillian plague had started spreading among the station's population of 50,000 beings. The disease was not usually fatal, but it caused severe pain and made victims unable to work for weeks. Station Commander Voth knew exactly what to do. For the past 20 years, whenever a plague or disease outbreak happened anywhere in the galaxy, the humans had the cure or could develop one quickly. Human medical teams were famous for their speed and effectiveness. "Send a message to the nearest human medical facility," Commander Voth told his communications officer. "Tell them we have a plague outbreak and need immediate assistance." The reply came back within an hour. "The Terran Federation no longer provides medical assistance to Council territories. Contact the Council Medical Authority for help." Commander Voth immediately contacted the Council Medical Authority on Nexus Prime. "We have a serious disease outbreak. We need medical teams and treatment supplies immediately. We will dispatch a team as soon as possible," came the reply. "Our nearest medical ship is currently helping with a similar outbreak in the Beta sector. Estimated arrival time is 3 weeks. 3 weeks? Commander Voth could not believe what he was hearing. "People are getting sicker every day. We need help now, not in 3 weeks. "I'm sorry, Commander. The Council Medical Authority has limited resources. We must handle outbreaks in order of severity." Commander Voth ended the communication and stared out at the stars. He remembered the last time there had been a disease outbreak on Epsilon Station. A human medical team had arrived within 6 hours. They had brought advanced treatment, equipment, and new medicines that stopped the disease in 2 days. The team leader, Dr. Sarah Kim, had worked for 18 hours straight to make sure everyone was treated properly. Now, Dr. Kim and her team were probably on some human world, helping human colonists while Epsilon Station waited 3 weeks for help that might not even work as well. On Earth, Admiral Rebecca Chun reviewed reports from across the galaxy. She was Sarah Chun's younger sister and commanded the Terran Federation's Deep Space Patrol fleet. The reports made interesting reading. "Pirates attacked 6 more merchant convoys this week," reported Captain Torres from her desk. "All in sectors that used to be patrolled by our ships." "Any Council response?" Admiral Chun asked. The Council Defense Force sent a patrol to investigate one attack. They arrived 4 days after it happened and found empty space. The other 5 attacks were not investigated at all. Admiral Chun nodded and moved to the next report. What about the medical emergencies? 12 requests for medical assistance from Council worlds, Captain Torres replied. Disease outbreaks, industrial accidents, natural disasters. The Council Medical Authority is handling 3 of them. The other 9 are still waiting for help. How long would it have taken us to respond to all 12? Admiral Chun asked. Our medical ships could have reached all 12 locations within 48 hours, Torres answered, with full treatment teams and equipment. Admiral Chen looked at the star map on her office wall. Red dots marked locations where human ships used to patrol. Yellow dots showed where human medical teams used to be stationed. Blue dots indicated human research facilities that used to share data with other species. The pattern was clear. Humans had not controlled much territory in the galaxy, but they had been everywhere that help was needed. They had been the ones who responded to emergencies, shared medical knowledge, protected trade routes, and maintained critical systems. Admiral, Captain Torres said quietly, are we really going to let all those people suffer just because the Council did not appreciate what we were doing? Admiral Chun was quiet for a long moment. Captain, for 200 years we helped everyone who asked. We shared our knowledge freely. We risked our lives to protect other species. We asked for nothing except basic respect and the right to protect innocent life. She turned away from the star map and looked at Captain Torres. The Council told us our help was not wanted. They imposed sanctions on us for doing what we thought was right. They made it very clear that we were not valued partners, just another species that should follow orders. So we stop helping completely? Torres asked. We stop helping people who made it clear they do not want our help, Admiral Chun replied. We focus on helping people who actually appreciate what we do. There are plenty of independent worlds and non-council species who would be happy to work with us. Captain Torres looked at the reports on her desk. Each one represented people in danger, people who needed help that only humans seemed willing and able to provide quickly. It feels wrong, she said. I know, Admiral Chun replied. But sometimes people have to learn what they had before they lost it. The Council thought we were just another member species they could push around. Maybe now they will understand what we really contributed to galactic civilization. Outside Admiral Chun's office window, human ships prepared for departure to new destinations. They would not be patrolling Council space anymore. They would not be responding to Council distress calls. They would not be sharing their medical knowledge with Council species. For the first time in 2 centuries, the galaxy would have to manage its problems without human help. The question was whether the galaxy could survive that change. 3 months after the humans walked out, the galaxy's economy began to collapse in ways nobody had expected. The first sign came from the Outer Rim territories, where goods stopped moving between star systems. Trade Minister Kelvon of the Zephyrian Commercial Alliance stared at the cargo manifests on his desk with growing panic. How many human ships were carrying our goods? He asked his assistant. According to these records, human vessels transported 41% of all intersector cargo, the assistant replied nervously. They were the only shipping companies willing to fly through the danger zones. Minister Kelvon felt his stomach drop. The danger zones were areas of space filled with asteroid fields, radiation storms, and unstable jump points. Most species considered them too risky for regular cargo runs. Insurance companies charged enormous fees for ships that tried to cross them. But human captains had been flying those routes for decades, treating the dangerous passages like ordinary space lanes. What about the other shipping companies? Kelvon asked. Can they pick up the extra cargo? His assistant checked the files. The Altarian Commercial Fleet says the routes are too dangerous. The Vorthek Heavy Transport Guild wants to triple their usual fees because of the increased risk. The Seraphim Logistics Corporation will only guarantee delivery times if we add 2 weeks to every shipment. Minister Kelvon realized that goods which used to take 5 days to ship across the galaxy would Now take 3 weeks and cost 5 times as much. The Zephyrian economy depended on fast, cheap transportation of their manufactured goods. Without human cargo ships, their entire trade network was falling apart. On the industrial world of Vorthak Prime, Chief Engineer Gorvak faced a different but equally serious problem. The massive factories that produce starship components for half the galaxy had started breaking down. The quantum processors in Factory 7 are failing, reported Supervisor Dex. The human technical team that usually maintains them disappeared overnight. We cannot figure out how to fix the problem. Gorvik walked through the enormous factory complex, looking at machines that had run perfectly for 20 years. Now warning. Lights flashed everywhere and production lines stood silent. How many human technicians worked here? Gorvik asked. 87, Dex replied. They maintained all the advanced equipment that our own engineers could not handle. The humans said the work was too dangerous for most species, but they seemed to enjoy the challenge. Gorvik stopped in front of a massive fusion reactor that powered the entire factory complex. Red warning lights indicated serious problems with the containment field. Who maintained this reactor? A human team led by engineer Maria Santos, Dex said quietly. She worked here for 15 years. She liked solving impossible technical problems. Contact her, Gorvik ordered. Offer her double salary too. Come back, Dex looked uncomfortable. I already tried, sir. She said the Terran Federation has assigned her to help build new colonies in independent space. She is not allowed to work in Council territory anymore. Gorvik stared at the failing reactor and realized that Vorthak Prime's industrial output would drop by 60% within a week. Without human technicians to maintain the complex machinery, the factories that supplied components too, thousands of worlds would simply stop working. The elegant world of Seraphia faced a crisis that was even more embarrassing. For 3 centuries, the crystalline seraphim had been famous throughout the galaxy for their beautiful cities that seemed to run themselves. Tourists came from everywhere to see the perfectly maintained streets, the self-cleaning buildings, and the automated transport systems that never broke down. Now, city manager Lirale stood in the central control room of the capital city, watching system after system report failures. The waste processing plants have stopped working, reported technician Zoran. The atmospheric recyclers are showing error messages we do not understand. The transport network keeps shutting down randomly. Lirale felt deeply ashamed as she realized the truth. The Seraphim cities were not really automated at all. For decades, human maintenance teams had been quietly working in tunnels and service areas that most Seraphim never even knew existed. The humans had kept the cities running so smoothly that everyone believed the systems were self-maintaining. How many humans worked on city maintenance? Lirale asked. The employment records show 237 human technicians, Zoran replied. They worked night shifts so they would not disturb the aesthetic beauty of the city during the day. Lirale looked out the window at her beautiful crystal city. Streets that had been clean for centuries were now covered with garbage that automated systems could not handle. Buildings that had sparkled like jewels were becoming dirty and stained. The transport pods that had glided silently through the air now made grinding noises and moved slowly. The tourists are starting to cancel their reservations, Zoran added quietly. They say Seraphia is not as beautiful as advertised anymore. On Earth, President Maria Martinez reviewed reports from across the galaxy with mixed feelings. The humans had not intended to cause so much chaos, but the results were undeniable. Economic output in Council space has dropped by 35%, reported Trade Secretary Williams. Unemployment is rising on 47 worlds. Several star systems are requesting emergency aid from the Council government. President Martinez nodded. What about our own economy? Growing rapidly, Williams replied with a smile. Independent worlds are offering us exclusive trade deals. Non-council species want to hire our shipping companies, our medical teams, and our technical specialists. The colony worlds we are protecting are providing rare resources in exchange for our help. Are our people happy with the new arrangements? Martinez asked. Secretary Williams checked his notes. Morale is very high. Our engineers say they are working on projects where their skills are appreciated. Our doctors like treating patients who are grateful for their help. Our cargo pilots prefer flying for clients who pay fair wages instead of expecting cheap transportation as a basic service. President Martinez walked to the window of her office and looked out at the busy spaceport. Human ships were launching every few minutes, but now they were heading to independent worlds, new colonies, and non-council territories. The ships were still carrying medical supplies, technical equipment, and emergency aid, but now they were helping people who actually wanted their assistance. Madam President, Secretary Williams said carefully, we are receiving many requests from council worlds asking for our help. The Zephyrians want to hire our cargo ships. The Vorthek are offering huge salaries for our technicians. The Seraphim are begging us to send maintenance teams. What do you think we should tell them? Martinez asked. The truth, Williams replied, that we are no longer available to help council members. We tried to be good galactic citizens for 2 centuries. We shared our knowledge, protected trade routes, responded to emergencies, and maintained critical systems. The council repaid us with sanctions and demands that we abandon our principles. President Martinez turned back to her desk, where a dozen more requests for human assistance waited for her response. Each request represented people in genuine need, but they were the same people whose governments had voted to punish humanity for protecting innocent life. Draft a standard response, she told Secretary Williams. Explain that the Terran Federation is now focused on helping independent worlds and non-council species. Suggest that council members contact the council government for assistance with their problems. Should we mention that they are welcome to leave the council and apply for Federation partnership? Williams asked. President Martinez smiled. No, let them figure that out for themselves. Some lessons are more valuable when people discover them on their own. Outside her window, another human ship launched toward the stars. It was heading to a small independent world that had asked for help building a hospital. The humans were still doing what they had always done, helping people who needed assistance. The only difference was that now they were helping people who actually appreciated their efforts. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about the difference between being powerful and being necessary. The council controlled most of the territory and resources, but the humans had somehow become essential to making everything work properly. Without them, the galaxy's economy was discovering just how much it had depended on people it had taken completely for granted. 6 months after the humans walked out, High Counselor Thane stood in his private office looking at reports that made him feel sick. The galaxy was falling apart faster than anyone had imagined possible. The Hegemony War has started again, reported his aide, Counselor Rix. The Krillian Empire and the Vorthek Confederacy are fighting over mining rights in the neutral zone. Without human peacekeepers to maintain the ceasefire, both sides have sent battle fleets to claim the territory. Thane closed his eyes and tried to remember when humans had become peacekeepers in that region. It had happened so gradually that no one had really noticed. Human diplomatic teams had simply started mediating disputes between the two empires. 20 years ago, they had stationed small patrol fleets in the neutral zone to prevent incidents. Everyone had been so used to the peace that they forgot someone was actively maintaining it. How many ships are involved in the fighting? Thane asked. Over 300 vessels from each side, Rix replied. The battle damage is spreading to nearby civilian areas. Refugee ships are fleeing the combat zone, but there is nowhere safe for them to go. What about our refugee assistance programs? Thane asked. Rix looked uncomfortable. The Council Refugee Authority has 12 ships available to help thousands of displaced families. We used to coordinate with humanitarian fleets that could handle large-scale evacuations, but those ships are no longer available to us? Thane walked to his window and looked out at Nexus Prime. Even the Council's own headquarters station was having problems. The environmental systems kept malfunctioning, causing temperature fluctuations and air quality issues. The communication networks experienced daily outages that disrupted Council business. The transportation system between different sections of the massive station worked poorly, making it difficult for representatives to attend meetings. Sir, Rix continued, we have 17 other crisis situations that need immediate attention. The plague on Epsilon Station is spreading to nearby worlds because we cannot provide adequate medical response. The Altarian trade networks have collapsed, causing food shortages on 12 agricultural worlds. The Seraphim tourism industry has failed completely, and their economy is in freefall. And the galactic internet? Fane asked, though he dreaded. The answer, failing rapidly, Rix confirmed. Human cyber specialists maintain most of the critical network infrastructure. Without them, we are experiencing cascading system failures across multiple sectors. Communication between distant worlds now takes days instead of minutes. Thane sat down heavily in his chair. The galactic internet was not just about entertainment or social communication. It connected banking systems, coordinated shipping schedules, managed power grids, and controlled life support systems on space stations. Without reliable internet, modern galactic civilization could not function. How many council meetings have we had to cancel this month? Thane asked. 43, Rix replied quietly. Most representatives cannot travel to Nexus Prime because their local transportation systems are not working properly. Others cannot communicate with their home governments to receive voting instructions because the internet keeps failing. Thane looked around his office at the empty chairs where other council leaders used to sit for daily briefings. The council. Chambers that once hosted hundreds of delegates now struggled to gather 50 representatives for emergency sessions. The rest were too busy dealing with local crises to participate in galactic governance. Tell me about the non-council worlds, Thane said. How are the independent systems handling these problems? Rix consulted his reports with obvious reluctance. The independent worlds that have formed partnerships with the Terran Federation are thriving. Their economies are growing, their medical systems are excellent, and their technology is advancing rapidly. Several council member worlds have inquired about leaving the council to join Federation partnerships instead. That was the information Thane had been dreading most. The galaxy was slowly dividing into two groups, council worlds that were struggling with constant crises, and Federation-aligned worlds that enjoyed human assistance and support on the agricultural world of Series Delta. Farmer Zek watched his crops dying in the fields. A solar storm had damaged the planet's weather control satellites 3 weeks ago. In the past, human technical teams would have arrived within days to repair the damage. Now Series Delta was still waiting for help from the Council Technical Authority. The Council repair ship will arrive in 6 weeks, Zek's wife informed him as she returned from the communication center. They said our repair request is number 47 on the waiting list. Zek looked at his withering crops and calculated that his family would lose their entire yearly income. 6 weeks was too late to save the harvest. What about the human technical teams? He asked. Could we hire them directly? I asked, his wife replied sadly. The humans said they are only accepting contracts from non-council worlds now. If Series Delta wants to leave the council and join an independent alliance, they would be happy to help us immediately. Zek thought about that option more seriously than he ever had before. Independence would mean giving up council protection and trade benefits, but what protection was the council actually providing? What trade benefits were worth losing an entire year's crops? In the depths of space, Captain Yara of the Council Defense Force received another distress call that she could not answer. A massive asteroid was heading toward the mining colony on Titan 7. The colony's defense systems were not powerful enough to destroy such a large asteroid, and evacuation would take longer than they had time for. Captain Yara knew exactly which ship could handle this emergency. The human dreadnought Invincible had the firepower to destroy the asteroid easily. Captain Rodriguez and his crew had saved dozens of colonies from similar threats over the years. They were experts at precision asteroid destruction that protected civilian populations. Send a message to the Invincible, Captain Yara ordered her communications officer. Tell them we have an emergency that requires their assistance. The reply came back quickly. The Invincible is currently protecting an independent mining colony in the Proxima system. We are not available for Council emergencies. Suggest you contact the Council Defense Authority for assistance. Captain Yara looked at her tactical display. The nearest Council ship with asteroid-destroying capability was 8 days away. The asteroid would hit Titan 7 in 6 days. 15,000 miners and their families were about to die because the one ship that could save them was no longer allowed to help Council worlds back on Nexus Prime. High Counselor Thane finally understood the terrible truth that had been growing clearer every day. The humans had never been just another member species of the Council. They had been something much more important and much more dangerous to lose. Other species had contributed to galactic civilization in their own ways. The Altarians provided scientific research and medical knowledge. The Vorthak built the heavy industry that manufactured starships and equipment. The Seraphim created art and culture that inspired everyone. The Zephyrians managed trade networks that connected distant worlds, but the humans had made themselves essential in a different way. They had become the galaxy's maintenance crew, its emergency responders, its peacekeepers, and its problem solvers. While other species focused on their specialized contributions, humans had quietly taken responsibility for all the dangerous, difficult, or unglamorous jobs that kept galactic civilization running smoothly. They were the ones who flew through dangerous space to deliver emergency supplies. They were the ones who worked in radiation-filled environments to repair critical systems. They were the ones who stood between hostile species to prevent wars. They were the ones who responded to disasters when everyone else was too far away or too busy to help. The Council had always thought of humans as helpful but replaceable. Now, they were discovering that humans had not just been helpful, they had been absolutely necessary. Without them, the galaxy was not just inconvenienced or struggling with minor problems. It was slowly collapsing into chaos. The worst part was that the humans had not done this to hurt anyone. They had simply stopped providing services that they had given freely for 2 centuries. Services that everyone had taken for granted until they were gone. Thane realized that the Council faced a choice. They could continue trying to manage galactic civilization without human help and watch everything fall apart completely. Or they could swallow their pride and ask the humans to come back. The question was whether the humans would even want to return to a system that had shown them so little respect. 1 year after Ambassador Sarah Chun walked out of the Council chambers, High Counselor Thane stood at the airlock of his personal ship as it approached Earth. He had never imagined he would be making this journey as a desperate supplicant rather than a powerful galactic leader. The delegation with him included representatives from 12 major Council species. All of them looked uncomfortable and defeated. The proud Altarian scientist Dr. Velix stared out the viewport with shame in his eyes. The elegant Seraphim diplomat Lirelei kept her crystalline features carefully neutral, but Thane could see her distress. Even the massive Vorthak engineer Gorvek seemed smaller somehow, diminished by the failure of his industrial empire. Earth. Control is granting us permission to land at Geneva Spaceport, reported the ship's pilot. They have assigned us a diplomatic shuttle to take us to the meeting location. Thane nodded, but he felt nervous about what they would find on Earth. The reports from Council intelligence had been disturbing. While the galaxy collapsed into chaos, humanity appeared to be thriving like never before. As their shuttle descended toward the meeting site, Thane saw the evidence of human prosperity everywhere. New cities sparkled with advanced architecture. Orbital stations bustled with shipping traffic from dozens of non-Council worlds. The space around Earth was filled with human vessels of all types, but none of them bore the markings of Council-affiliated organizations. The meeting took place in a simple conference room overlooking Lake Geneva. Ambassador Sarah Chun sat at the head of the table, but she looked different than she had a year ago. She seemed more confident, more relaxed, and somehow younger despite the passage of time. Her clothes bore the insignia of the Terran Federation, not the Galactic Council. "High Counselor Thane," Sarah said politely as the delegation entered. "Thank you for coming all this way. Please, sit down and tell me how the Council can help the Terran Federation today." Thane was surprised by her phrasing. He had expected to be asking for help, not offering it. Ambassador Chun, we have come to discuss the possibility of humanity rejoining the Galactic Council. Sarah smiled, but it was not a warm expression. I am afraid there has been a misunderstanding, High Counselor. I am no longer ambassador to the Galactic Council. My current title is Secretary of External Affairs for the Terran Federation. The Council is now considered a foreign government, just like any other political organization we might choose to work with. Dr. Felix leaned forward desperately. Secretary Chun, the galaxy is suffering without human assistance. Medical crises are spreading across dozens of worlds. Research projects that could save millions of lives have been abandoned. Surely you understand that people are dying because of this separation. I understand completely, Sarah replied calmly. Just as I understood a year ago when the Council voted to impose sanctions on humanity for protecting innocent species from extinction. Did the Council consider that people would die when they tried to force us to abandon our principles? Gorvak's mechanical translator rumbled as he spoke. The industrial worlds are collapsing. Factories that have run for centuries are shutting down because we cannot maintain the equipment without human technicians. Millions of workers are losing their jobs. That must be very difficult, Sarah said with genuine sympathy. Have you considered offering fair wages and safe working conditions to attract skilled technicians from other species? Other species do not have the technical knowledge or willingness to work in dangerous environments, Gorvak admitted reluctantly. Then perhaps you should have treated the humans who were willing to do that work with more respect, Sarah suggested. Lirelei spoke for the first time, her crystalline voice ringing like music. Our cities are dying. The beauty that took centuries to create is crumbling because we cannot maintain the systems that humans built for us. Our entire culture is based on aesthetic perfection, and without human maintenance teams, we are becoming ugly, Sarah nodded sympathetically. I visited Seraphia many times as a young diplomat. Your cities were indeed beautiful. It must be painful to watch them deteriorate. Will you help us? Lirelei asked desperately. We can pay any price you ask. The price is not money, Sarah replied firmly. The price is respect. For 2 centuries, humanity provided services to the galaxy because we believed we were all working together for the greater good. We shared our knowledge freely, responded to emergencies immediately, and asked for nothing except the right to protect innocent life. She stood up and walked to the window overlooking the lake. The Council repaid our service with condescension, sanctions, and demands that we abandon our most basic principles. You made it very clear that human values were not welcome in galactic civilization. High Counselor Thane finally spoke again, his voice heavy with desperation. What would it take for humanity to return to the Council? We are prepared to offer anything: technology, territory, resources, a permanent seat on the executive committee. Sarah turned back to face the delegation. High Counselor, I think you still do not understand what happened. We did not leave the Council because we wanted more power or better treatment. We left because we discovered that we have fundamentally different values than the rest of galactic civilization. She activated a holographic display showing a star map. This is what humanity has accomplished in the past year. We have formed partnerships with 47 independent worlds. We have helped 6 species establish their first space colonies. We have provided medical assistance to 12 non-council governments during disease outbreaks. We have mediated peace agreements between 7 different conflicts. The map showed a growing network of worlds connected by lines of trade, cooperation, and mutual assistance. All of them were outside council space. We are not hiding from the galaxy, Sarah continued. We are building a different kind of galactic civilization, one based on cooperation instead of domination, one where protecting innocent life is considered a virtue instead of a violation of law. One where species help each other because they want to, not because they are forced to by treaties and regulations. Dr. Felix looked at the display with obvious envy. Your medical research has advanced more in 1 year than ours has in the past 5. How is that possible? When you work with people who appreciate your efforts instead of taking them for granted, you tend to be more motivated, Sarah explained. Our scientists are happy to share their discoveries with species who treat them as valued partners instead of free labor. Thane stood up slowly, finally understanding that this meeting was not going the way he had planned. Are you saying that humanity will never work with the Council again? I'm saying that the Council made a choice, Sarah replied. You chose to treat humanity as a subordinate species that should follow orders without question. You chose to punish us for protecting innocent life. You chose to impose sanctions rather than try to understand our perspective. She walked back to her chair but did not sit down. Choices have consequences, High Counselor. The Council chose to reject human values and human assistance. Now you must live with the results of that choice, Lirelei spoke desperately. But surely, individual Council worlds could establish separate relationships with the Federation? Some of our members have talked about leaving the Council to join your alliance. For the first time, Sarah's expression softened slightly. Any world that wishes to leave the Council and apply for Federation partnership is welcome to do so. We evaluate each application based on their commitment to our shared values of protecting innocent life, promoting cooperation, and treating all species with respect. What about worlds that want to maintain Council membership but also work with humanity? Thane asked. Sarah shook her head. The Federation does not work with Council member worlds. We learned from experience that the Council considers such cooperation to be a violation of their authority. We will not put our people in a position where they might be sanctioned again for doing what they believe is right. The delegation sat in silence for several minutes, finally understanding the full scope of what had happened. Humanity had not just left the Council. They had created an alternative to the Council. They were building a competing civilization based on completely different principles. This meeting is over, Sarah said gently. Thank you for coming to Earth. I hope the Council finds a way to solve the problems it has created. If any Council world decides to leave and apply for Federation membership, we will consider their application fairly. As the delegation prepared to leave, Thane asked one final question. Do you think the galaxy is better off divided this way? Sarah considered the question carefully. I think the galaxy is learning an important lesson about the difference between forcing cooperation and earning it. The Council tried to rule through authority and law. We prefer to lead through example and service. She walked them to the door. Give my regards to the Council chambers, High Counselor. I spent many years there, trying to make galactic civilization better for everyone. I hope someday the Council will understand that different species can work together without anyone having to surrender their principles. The delegation returned to their ship in defeated silence. Behind them, Earth continued its busy routine of supporting a growing network of independent worlds that had chosen cooperation over